We got to get woke, go broke two-parter, my friends. Coca-Cola is shutting down its diversity plan after chief lawyer resigns. And we also have this extremely creepy story inside the all-hands meeting that led to a third of Basecamp employees quitting. Wokeness is a recipe for disaster. Having your employees and staff at your company talk about things totally unrelated to business, having that occupy all their time, is probably a bad idea. Now, in my opinion, people are allowed to talk about certain things, especially if someone is being discriminated against. The problem is this is being exploited and it's being used to destroy companies. Instead of focusing on getting the job done, they continually make demands. And because people are scared about lawsuits and bad press, they give in to these demands. But eventually it has to stop. Because these companies won't survive if they keep embracing internal political activism. You want to talk about the conditions of your employment, have a legitimate grievance. Well, as it turns out, it ain't going so well for some of these big companies. Now, you may have heard that Coca-Cola was criticizing Georgia over their voter law. And for some reason, shortly after, they said, you know what, we were wrong. We walked that back. Could it have been that they saw an actual slump in sales because conservatives have started fighting back? And not even just conservatives, but the anti-woke, disaffected liberals, of which there are more and more? The answer is yes. I think Coke said, Georgia's wrong. And then all of a sudden they were like, wait, 75 million people who drink Coke are now going to ask for Pepsi. And Pepsi didn't say anything, so they're chilling. Although Pepsi did have that really awful commercial where one of those Jenner women gave a cop a Pepsi. But anyway, I digress. Get woke, go broke, baby. They realized that they stand to lose a lot by getting into the political arena. Conservatives have been upping the ante in terms of boycotts, and I'm not the biggest fan of boycotting. Because for the longest time, I would say, I don't care. I don't want my company involved in politics. But I suppose that is, in essence, the pathway to the boycott. When I would see, Hulu or whatever one of these companies make some ridiculously woke statement, I'd be like, I'm out. Not because I agree or disagree, because I just don't want to be supporting companies that prioritize activism over their core product. Something similar happened with Disney Plus. It's a rumor. We don't know exactly if it's true, but there's a rumor that Gina Carano may come back to The Mandalorian. It's just a YouTube rumor, so I don't know if it's true, and I have no way to verify that, but I think it's plausible. A lot of conservatives canceled their Disney Plus. And again, not just conservative, but a lot of anti-woke people. So I had purchased a year subscription of Disney Plus. Then the Carano thing happened. And I was like, cancel. And it asked me why. And I said, you guys are nuts. Congratulations. You got a year membership from me, but that's it. Now, I suppose they can bring back Gina Carano to The Mandalorian, and I'd probably want to keep watching it. But let's read about what's going on with Coke and how they get woke, go broke. They say Coca-Cola pauses aggressive diversity plan after chief lawyer resigns. They say the pause comes after the orchestrator of the plan, Coke's former general counsel Bradley Gayton, abruptly resigned last month after less than a year on the job and as criticisms from the Quotas mounted. Some questioned whether Gayton's policies violated Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which says employers can't treat people differently based on race. Standing ovation. Critical race theory, critical theory in general, which includes critical gender theory, is a violation of the law in practice. You can believe whatever dumb racist things you want, but you can't at a company prioritize race or gender or national origin or religion, whatever. They go on to say, Scott Leith, a spokesman for Coke, said Gayton's replacement, Monica Howard Douglas, is now reviewing the plan. When there is a leadership change, it takes time for the new leader to review the current status of the team, organization and initiatives, he said. Monica is fully committed to the notions of equity and diversity in the legal profession, and we fully expect she will take the time necessary to thoughtfully review any plans going forward. It ain't over yet. They've only paused it. But I'll tell you this, if you are a conservative working for Coke, the law is on your side. It's what it's here for. You should go to, I think it's the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. If your company, be it Coke or anyone, says that based on your race, you can or can't do things, go to the EEOC immediately. This is a government commission to prevent racism and discrimination in the workplace. That's what it's there for. Use it. In January, Gayton made headlines when he unveiled his plan to penalize outside law firms that failed to meet new diversity quotas by slashing their fees or cutting ties with them altogether. Under the plan, Any law firm seeking to do business with the company was required to commit that at least 30% of billed time would be from diverse attorneys. What does that even mean? And at least half of that time would be from black attorneys. That is straight up racist. And I'm pretty sure that's illegal. It gets interesting when you're dealing with outside contracts, but I'm pretty sure you can't say we only hire based on a certain race, dude. Quote, the hard truth is that our profession is not treating the issue of diversity and inclusion as a business imperative, Gayton wrote in January, unveiling the plan. We have a crisis on our hands, and we need to commit ourselves to specific actions that will accelerate the diversity of the legal profession. But Gayton's sudden resignation last month has thrown the plan into doubt, with outsiders criticizing the plan and urging Coca-Cola to walk it back. Perhaps Coke was facing legitimate complaints from government or from lawsuits, and they were like, yo, that's illegal. You can't just say that. What are you doing? Legal Defense Foundation Project on Fair Representation published an open letter to Coke last week warning that Coke's outside counsel racial quota requirements are unlawful. In a meeting with Coke's global legal team, Douglas, the company's new general counsel, said that Coca-Cola was taking a pause for now, but would likely salvage some parts of the diversity plan, Law.com reported. Coca-Cola hired Gayton in September 2020 after spending nearly 30 years as the top lawyer at Ford. Despite his departure from Coke as general counsel, he still has a relationship with the company. He signed a new contract to serve as a consultant to Coca-Cola CEO James Quincy. In that position, he'll be making a hefty $12 million over the next year. That included a $4 million sign-on fee and a monthly consulting fee of, yikes, $666,666. Good number. You can add a one to that. According to an April 21st securities filing, it's unclear how Gayton will be able to impact the company's outside law firm diversity plans in his new position. It's hardly Coke's first stab at being woke. In February, employees were urged to be less white. If you're an employee of Coke and you have not filed a complaint with the EEOC, then you know what? I am sick. I am done. I mean it. How long has this been going on? How many days do I have to get up here? How many days do I have to be like, wow, another crazy thing is happening? Do something about it. File a complaint. Jody Shaw did when she was at Smith College and they started telling her what you couldn't do because she was based on being white. She went to I think she went to the EEOC. She filed a complaint nonetheless. You cannot discriminate on the basis of race. Start filing complaints. But people don't do it. You got to start somewhere. I've done it. I've filed numerous complaints against companies I've worked at when they broke the law, and I think everybody should. Quote, in the U.S. and other Western nations, white people are socialized to feel that they are inherently superior because they are white, reads one of the slides allegedly sent from an internal whistleblower. Another slide suggests try to be less white with tips including be less oppressive, listen, believe, and break with white solidarity. The tweet that shared the image of the course went viral. More recently, Republican lawmakers have criticized Coke for embracing Democratic Party positions. The Atlanta-based outfit made headlines in April for denouncing Georgia state law that critics said blocked black people and other people of color from voting. GOP lawmakers in turn blasted the company and others that issued a statement. Okay, we get the point. I want to show you this story. We get that Coke has problems. You know what? I'm not going to buy Coke. I mean it. I'm not going to buy Coke products. I've been having a blast. You know what I did? I ordered a bunch of RC Cola. Maybe not the best move. I have no idea. Maybe RC is woke as well. But for now, I went online and I was like, you know what I haven't had in a while? RC Cola. I didn't get it because I'm mad at Coke. I bought RC because in Chicago, when you're growing up there, RC is what you get. And so I was like, how cool would it be? So we ordered a bunch of like deep dish pizzas and RC Cola. And now, you know what? I'm all here for it. We got a bunch of RC Cola. It's actually really good. I actually prefer it. You know, now that I'm drinking it, I'm not a fan of Coke. I like Pepsi. It's okay. But RC is what I grew up drinking. So you know what? I'm an RC guy from now on. Actually, I don't drink a whole lot of soda. But what I am doing, seriously, I'm looking for smaller businesses. I'm looking online to order sodas from companies you don't normally hear of. Maybe they're a smaller, a smaller company, a small distributor of their own unique sodas. And we've ordered a bunch of sodas. I'll tell you this. It's not about Coke. It's about, for one, supporting smaller business. For another reason, getting away from high fructose corn syrup. I'm just, not a fan. I've read a lot about it. I'm not going to sit here and opine on the glycemic index or whatever, or a lot of these things. But I like pure cane sugar. So I'm going to buy different sodas. I'm not going to drink that Coke garbage. And I think for most of us, when we watch Coke do this, we should just say, we're not going to buy from you. Here's where it gets interesting in the Go Broke stuff. The Verge. The all-hands-on meeting that led to a third of Basecamp employees quitting. So Basecamp is like a business management software, I guess. I don't know too much about it. Supposedly, it was this it's this big company in Silicon Valley. It's very valuable, and it was woke. Recently, one of their top people, I guess, published a letter saying no longer will we allow political discussions to be taking place. And I guess they're basically saying the wokeness is out. Well, guess what? Some of the employees in this meeting started crying and screaming at their screen when they were hearing this stuff. It's truly amazing. What's really amazing is that one of their employees, a guy named Ryan Singer, said that he didn't think America was a white supremacist country. He says, I strongly disagree that we live in a white supremacist culture. He said, very often, if you express a dissenting view, you get called a Nazi. I have not felt this is open territory for discussion. If we were to try and get into it as a group, it would be very painful. So some other employees, a black employee, started saying that you're a white male. You come into this meeting and call people racist and say white supremacy doesn't exist. The fact that is a factual lie, and they're screaming. You want to know why a lot of companies bend the knee and cave? I'll tell you why. We've set ourselves up. It's unfortunate, really. I'm a big fan of the civil rights movement. I'm a big fan of the ruling of Loving v. Virginia, naturally, because it allows my family to exist, and the civil rights gained. But with laws like the 1964 Civil Rights Act, you start getting into interesting territory. Labor laws in the EEOC, particularly. Now, if you're a Coke employee, you might have a complaint under Title VII, and you can file with the EEOC. But here's what happens. A bunch of employees start complaining, and they'll say, this company is racist. And if you say you can't talk about wokeness or political activism, what they'll do is they'll go and file a complaint, and they'll say, I was experiencing racism, and they told me I wasn't allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to do that. Your employees are allowed to talk about grievances and harassment and deal with these issues. And therein lies the challenge. Most companies are sitting there like, okay, we have a bunch of people screaming and yelling, all this crazy stuff. How do we stop it? And their lawyer probably says, if somebody is complaining about racism in your company, and then you just tell them to shut up, yeah, you're going to get in serious trouble. But what if they're not seriously complaining about racism? What if they're just making things up or changing definitions because they're part of a cult? Doesn't matter. They'll say, my boss is a white supremacist and he was racist towards me. And when I started complaining and filed a notice, they told me to shut up and threatened to fire me. Then you go to the EEOC and they say, whoa. And then the government comes after the business. And that's why this cult is able to gain power using these methods. So like this guy, Ryan Singer says, I don't believe this company is racist. He said, I don't act that way towards people. It doesn't matter what you say. They change definitions on purpose, but more importantly, how do you define one's own perspective on racism? If someone files a complaint and then the EEOC follows up and goes after your business, are you going to be able to afford to deal with that? There's this woman who posted about how there was an attempted woke takeover of her company. That basically a bunch of people started saying racist things, accusing the boss of being racist, and they kept just capitulating and giving what they wanted. And then when they realized it wasn't working, they said, okay, you know what? We're done with this. Enough. And the woke people eventually just caved and quit. Maybe that's what you need to do. What we're seeing now inside Basecamp is, I think they realized something. If you want to have an open political discussion, then don't be surprised when the other side shows up and argues as well. How can a company function if they're like, we allow political activism, and then someone says something about white privilege and the other person says, that's wrong, you're a liar. And then people are just spending all their days fighting in Slack, which Slack is like a chat room for your employees, or it's like a chat server for your company or project or whatever. How are you supposed to function as a business when everyone's just arguing with each other over politics? Apparently, this has a lot to do with something they were running at the company. It was called like the funny client names list or something. And I guess they said this. Look, they said behind the scenes, Freed had been dealing with an employee reckoning over a long-standing company practice of maintaining a list of funny customer names, some of which were of Asian and African origin. The internal discussion over that list had been oriented primarily around making Basecamp feel more inclusive to its employees and customers. But Freed and his co-founder, David Heinemeier Hansen, had been taken aback by an employee post which argued that mocking customer names laid the foundation for racially motivated violence and closed the thread. Pathetic. The problem is they closed the thread because someone complained the thread was racist, and they know they'll get in trouble if they say shut up. I'll tell you what's really funny. There's also risk to me. That's right. me expressing my opinion on workplace issues around race and rights could be brought up later in the event that one of my employees gets mad at me. There was somebody, I can't remember who it was. It might have been David Portnoy, some of Barstool. Maybe not. So if it's not David, I apologize. But they said something like, if you even think of unionizing, we'll send you to the salt mines. No, I'm sorry. I think that was the Federalist. And then someone actually filed a complaint saying, see, look, anti-union rhetoric. And they were like, it was a joke. We weren't serious. There's no salt mine. But you see what happens. It wasn't employees at the Federalist who had threatened them. It was like outside groups arguing it was an EEOC violation, and the government can intervene if they so feel like it. And their argument will be, well, the employees are too scared of retaliation. Here's what's really funny. So apparently a third of the Basecamp employees quit. So a bunch of the woke people quit. But even the dude who was not woke, the guy Ryan Singer, actually ends up quitting as well. I thought that was, I thought that he should, I don't know. It's rather sad that the one guy who was arguing from a point of reason also ended up resigning due to the backlash. There was an investigation launched. They announced he had resigned. To me, that's absolutely insane. The meeting broke up after no more employees had questions. Here's what they say. A half an hour after the meeting ended, for a half an hour, they had this internal meeting. Freed posted an internal note saying that Singer had been suspended pending an investigation. He added that the company was bringing in unspecified outside help to address the situation. On Monday morning, in an interview, Freed told me Singer resigned. I know exactly how that is. I once worked for a company. I was a nonprofit. I was one of their best managers and fundraisers. And a disgruntled new hire who was angry made up some lies about me. So they put me on some kind of probation. I said, no, I quit. Sorry. And they're like, wait, no, don't quit. And I was like, I quit. Bye. Immediately. So what happens is I get this new employee complaining about me because I guess they wanted a free ride. And they come and I get pulled aside and they say this employee was making, it was business accusations, nothing to do with interpersonal drama. They were like that you said this to someone while you were fundraising. And I was like, that's not true. And they said, well, we're going to have an investigation and look through what's going on. I was like, no, I won't stand for that. You either trust me or you don't. And I'm not going to sit here and go through this because some new hire you just met made up some BS. And they were like, well, we have to do it. And then I said, fine, whatever. When everyone leaves, I stopped halfway out the building, turned around and said, no, I walked in and said, I quit. And they were shocked. Like, no, don't quit. And I was like, don't disrespect me. If you don't like the job I do, I don't have to be here. We don't owe each other anything. So you know what? Good for Ryan for dipping. They wanted to put him on suspension for telling the truth. They wanted to suspend him for saying, I don't think the company's racist. I disagree with your framing. I calm down, I guess. So they suspended him. Incredible. It's because people are scared of the government. Because the business knows that if you were to take, it's a white employee against a black employee. The black employee says we live in a white supremacist culture. And if they go to the EEOC, they're not going to want to listen to what this company has to say. They're not going to, they're immediately going to be like, a white senior employee is making statements about there being no racism. Well, you might get in trouble. Now, Singer gave this statement to The Verge. He said, I objected to an employee's statement that we live in a white supremacist culture. White supremacism exists, and America's history of racism still presents terrible problems, but I don't agree that we should label our entire culture with this ideology. On the call, the view I gave was we all want a future where everyone is treated fairly. And yet there can be disagreement on whether defining our culture as white supremacist helps us to get there. The subject is so charged that discussing such disagreements at work quickly leads to misunderstanding, heated accusations, and loss of faith. Unfortunately, painful misunderstanding did result. Tensions were so high after the call, I decided it won't be tenable to stay on the team. I gave my resignation over the weekend. Well, good. They say this week was to have been Basecamp's virtual biannual meetup in which employees come together to bond over social activities while talking about the future of the company. You know what? You get these people who have never been reprimanded, who have been told about all of these, these cult-like ideologies, and they're just angry, vile people. You should not have angry, vile people working for your company. Screen them better. If someone is being racist and discriminatory, they should be held accountable and the business should be held accountable. That's what the EEOC is for. Like we saw with Coca-Cola, people need to be filing complaints. Like we saw with Jody Shaw, people need to be filing complaints. Here with Basecamp, Singer should have filed a complaint. He should have. Make that play. He still probably can. He can say that the accusations of him having white privilege, having some kind of power over other people, or of him participating in white supremacy was based on the color of his skin. And he was suspended for rejecting a racist determination. Do it. It doesn't cost you anything. You go to the EEOC and you say, here's what happened. And they say yes or no. Now, unfortunately, EEOC probably wouldn't care. And therein lies the problem. The cult has its tendrils. I mean, they even got it in the CIA. And maybe it's too late. Maybe this is something people should have fought a long time ago. But I don't know. I think with Coke pausing their program, and I think there's a path forward. It won't be easy, but you've got to start now. Otherwise, you can't just sit around. The fact that Basecamp was already planning on dismantling these activist conversations is a good sign. Maybe it will persist, and maybe the cult will start losing power. I don't know. We'll see. Joe Biden seems to enjoy using the power of the cult to gain, votes. We'll see how that plays out for him in the long run, because I think people are getting fed up with this, and it's going to result in Republicans having a very strong edge going into 2022. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.